Hi there. This is a box I made for the Wild Bunch. Two of my grandsons, Brendan and Blake. The box is made out of ash, and you can see it's extremely figured. This caused a lot of grief during the building process because in and around where the knots are, which you can see are all over the place, the grain is going in different directions at the same time. And what ends up happening is there's tear out that goes on during the planing process. Even though I had an opportunity to send it through a commercial drum sander to try and eliminate most of the tear out that occurred, there is still some, albeit it's not visible, but there is still some. This build was actually very interesting, and there's a lot of interesting features to it. The dovetails I used to join the box are all hand cut. The molding you can see down here, this molding, that was a piece of wood that I saved because when I originally got the boards, they were 11.5 inches wide by about 5.5 feet high. And there was a lot of knots in them. And so there was a selection process of cutting the wood to get the best panel, the best faces possible without having knots in the seams. And anyway, there was a lot of selection process went on, and that particular piece right here was cut and set aside because I knew that that knot was going to be something beautiful after I got it filled with epoxy, and I wasn't sure exactly where I was going to use it, but it ended up that I used it in a very nice place, and it almost got centered. The lid was made using breadboard ends because breadboard ends are going to help keep this panel flat. One of the problems when you're joining wood together is they may cup and bow and twist and move just with the humidity, with age, and so putting a breadboard end onto the end of this helps to mitigate that problem. Also, you notice these little pins here. This is something called a draw board end. Well, draw bore. And what happens is there is a tenon or a tongue on this piece of wood that sticks out, and this piece of wood has the corresponding groove cut into it. And the pins are holding it together. But what happens is the part of the hole on this piece of wood is 1/16 of an inch farther in than the hole on this side. So when I drove the pins in, it made this board get pulled up against these boards. Draw bore. So that was very interesting, and it worked out very well, and it all came together. And there are some custom handles that were done on it. So all in all, it turned out very well. It took the better part of 3 months to do this, on and off, because there were other projects that got parachuted onto the workbench during this process. And it all went well. And as a matter of fact, it was sort of a good thing because this box was made during the COVID lockdown during the winter of 2021. And it's a good thing I had something to do because one could go crazy hanging around the house all day long. Anyway, this kept me nice and busy. One of the coolest features about this box, being that it was made for my grandsons, was that this lid is 14 pounds by itself. So I needed to have a soft closing system so that none of them would get brained along the way. And if you want to see something cool, look at this. Isn't that slick? So that's the toy box in a nutshell. I made a lot of videos during the build process, and I'm currently in the process of editing them together into a complete video on the build. It'll be out in a little while. Editing takes a lot of patience and time. But for the short term, there's the project. I think it looks great, and I'll be delivering it to my son this week.